on time and promptly to miss out because we did promise a 3:30 start. So first and foremost, I guess, thank you so much for joining us. We're always continually impressed by those students who are not only, you know, making the most out of this time where, let's be honest, things are a bit different and things are a bit surreal when we're all at home and you might not necessarily be in college or school as you usually are, but using this time to your advantage to learn a little bit more about brands which you might not know about skills you might not know about, and about some experiences you might not have been able to gain otherwise. So well done for joining us, and for those of you who are joining us kind of week on week, we're really impressed by that. So well done for that, and thank you. Ibad, I know you're saying hi there to me. I'm a familiar face, I guess, if you see me each week in and out, so that's great to see. Hi there. In terms of my name, then I'm Ellie, yes, and probably a familiar face. And I know that those of you who are dialed in, you'll see some maybe unfamiliar faces who you haven't seen before, who will be introducing themselves in a little bit. So as you know from the fact that you've signed up today's session, today we are joined by St Modwen Homes, who we haven't actually heard from previously before in this HBF program, and I'm really excited to kind of talk a little bit more about the brand and be joined by a few people who are going to tell us about their journeys and a bit more about their experiences. So that's really exciting, and it gives us an idea of actually what the session is about today, just to kick off there. And just a reminder that, you know, that's what Pathway CTM are here to do. We're helping you as students to make informed decisions about your next steps. So particularly here, we're focusing on construction and the home building sector, but we're really here to help support you through that, making those decisions. To give you an idea about how today's going to go, I know there are a few familiar faces who will know exactly how this works, but those of you who aren't, I am going to do an introduction as I've started here, but then I'm going to be handing over and we're going to do a bit more of an overview into the company as a whole. We're going to hear from each of the individuals who have joined us today, who were lucky enough to be joined by today, and hear about their journey. I'm going to kick off a Q&A with Catherine from our side, asking a few questions to those people who work at St Modwen to hear actually what it's like and get some insight on that side of things. And then we're handing over to you to ask some questions yourselves. That being said, then you don't have to wait to the Q&A section to ask questions. We really want you to get the most out of today's session by asking questions throughout. If I say something that you're not sure about, if anyone who is talking says something that you're not really 100% sure about, or you have some questions on that, go ahead and ask them throughout the session. I mean, I know I speak for all of the people on the line in terms of we won't be distracted and we won't be disrupted if you do ask us questions throughout. That's really what we want you to get from today, is a feeling that it's not a passive sit back and listen. Definitely get involved and ask some questions. I mean, Ibad, the fact that you already said hi and interacted with us is a great sign, because it shows that you're starting the conversation, which is what we want to see throughout the session. So any questions you might have, yes, so as you can see, there's the chat box where Catherine's put in the hi to everyone, so do write in any comments there. But also in terms of the Q&A box, just filter them throughout, don't wait, and there's no such thing as a silly question, so go ahead and ask the questions throughout today's session. So that's really logistically how it's going to work. That's the kind of format in terms of the agenda for today, and that's how you can get involved. So go ahead and do that, and we'd be really interested to hear what questions you have to ask. In terms of what we want you to get out of today, then I know that it's quite top line and you probably will be expecting this, but really what we want you to do is understand a little bit more about the company as a whole. Leave today's session knowing who are St Modwen, what do they offer, some journeys about from some journeys into the company, and I know they'll vary. There's not one particular route into the company, and I think the fact that we've got quite a few panelists today really helps support that kind of argument that we've got a few different journeys in, which will be really interesting to hear. and maybe some tips. So I'll be asking some questions around, you know, as a 16 to 18-year-old, which all of you are on the line, what tips would these people sitting in the other side give to you? But also just for you to ask any questions that you might have around working in the industry, working in the company. Today, we really want you to leave having an idea of all of these three things before you leave today. And we're conscious of the fact, you know, it's a 45-minute session, so that's great. You'll get an insight in this time, and it does give enough time to ask any questions or anything like that, at the same time as being able to listen to a bit of content up front first. So that's really how we want you to leave today's session, and that's a success for us. So that's really what you're going to get out of today. So I know you've heard a lot of me talking over the weeks, and particularly over the last kind of 10 minutes as well. So I guess I'm not really the expert here when it comes to St Modwen, and we definitely do have some experts on the line. So without much more of me then, Alison, is it right if you introduce yourself and kind of give us a bit of an overview of St Modwen as a whole?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ellie. So my name's Allison Tucker, and I am the Early Careers and Training Coordinator for St Modwen. What can I tell you about St Modwen? We're a different kind of property partner, and we do take a little bit of a different view. We've got three strategic main business areas. That's our strategic land and regeneration, industrial and logistics, and residential. And I'm actually going to talk to you today mainly about our residential, and the trainees and apprentices that have joined me today are from our residential side of the business. One thing that I really got in the feel that I got from St Modwen is we are different, and we're extraordinarily proud of how different we are. And for us, it's more than just building homes. We care about the places that we change and the futures that we create, and it's all about that community as well. So my role within early careers and training coordination is to coordinate everything that our trainees and apprentices and graduates in terms of their qualifications and programs, right from the start of them joining our business through to them qualifying and moving on within the business as well. And also working with companies like yourself and other colleges, and really making sure that we've got those partnerships, because it was all about that community feel. We focus on learning and development, and it's about that bigger picture as a business. And we've got some real great links with some local colleges and schools, and I'm sure all the trainees and apprentices today will be able to tell you about those partnerships as well. One of the areas that is very interesting about what St Modwen do is we actually have our own trainee and graduate scheme, and that was launched in 2016. It's suited for anybody that is leaving school, is maybe sixth form leaver, college leaver, has qualified, a university graduate, or is a job changer. And it's very much about ensuring that everybody in our business has that personal development and understands every area of our business and has different rotations. So we look at the technical management, the site management, and quantity surveying as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hand back over to you, Ellie, because I think what's really important and what everybody wants to hear from is the trainees and apprentices and graduates that I've got with me today. So I'm going to hand back to you to be able to introduce them.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much, Alison. And I think that I know some of the students on the line will definitely have some questions for you later as well. So that's really good to hear, and thank you for the overview. But as you say, then I'm just going to go straight in. So Jenna, is it all right if you give us an introduction, I guess, to yourself? What do you do, and what was your journey to where you are today, really?
Okay, yes. So my name's Jenna. I'm a trainee surveyor for St Modwen Homes, and I work on a site based in Newtoxter. I'm actually a little bit older than the rest of them. I'm 31, but I had a complete career change. I used to work for the NHS in the dental field, and I kind of got as far as I could with that. My dad's actually a quantity surveyor, so I thought I'd give it a go. but I'm third year at Wolverhampton Uni doing my Bachelor of Science Honours degree in quantity surveying. It's a 5-year degree part-time, so we get to do on-the-job training whilst we're learning, which I think is really, really beneficial, because it's really easy to sit in front of a book and read it, but when you actually see it in practice, it all makes sense, and it's a lot easier, I think. But yeah, so that's mine. It's not the traditional route, but I just needed a career change. I was just bored and fancied something a bit different, so I came in via that route.
Absolutely, and that's a great evidence, as well as how it's not just a straight line. You can go and do various things and get great skills from doing different things as well. I won't, I'll introduce everyone, don't worry, and move through, but one quick question for you there then. I know you mentioned, I guess maybe there was a family influence, but what was it that made you kind of think, all right, well, I think I'm moving away from this role in the NHS, but home building is the next step for me? Do you know what that was, or maybe it was just family influence?
I think it was that it's a job where, because I really like being around people, obviously with being in the dentistry field, but it's just completely different types of people. Like you're exposed to so many different types of people from all different types of backgrounds, and you get to be outside a lot, because we're site-based surveyors, obviously not at the moment, but we're normally based out on site. And because I had my son when I was really young, I didn't get a university qualification. So that was really attractive as well, when St Modwen were like, well, we want you to be qualified and chartered and everything. So, I mean, obviously I've seen how successful my dad's been, and I thought, wow, it can't be that hard, surely. So, so yeah, I thought I'd go down that route.
Yeah, no, so many really valid points there for the students, thinking about, the qualification side of it, the support then as well, and the fact of being out on site, definitely all really attractive. Great, thank you. And then so I'm just going to move Kirsty over to you, kind of, introduction of yourself and how you got to what you're doing today.
Yeah, so I'm Kirsty and I'm 25, so I'm a little bit older than probably maybe some of the students here as well. I left school, I went to do my A-levels, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I never got to finish my A-levels because I became quite poorly. So when I recovered from my illness, I had no idea what I wanted to do because I didn't have any qualifications. I got into sales. I did really well in sales, but I didn't want to do it forever. So I decided to go to Burton College, and I was training to be an electrician. And Burton College do some really amazing schemes. One of them is sponsored by St Modwen's, and it's called the Learner of the Year. And you can be picked from any department where 3 or 4 students will be picked. Doesn't matter how far along in your course you are, but at the end of the year, they will pick 4 of the best students that have worked really hard and really proved themselves, to want that little bit extra. And I got put forward for an interview with St Modwen's, and thankfully I got the job, and I'm now training to be a site manager with St Modwen's, and I'm doing 2 qualifications alongside each other. So it's been really useful, and doing the MVQ as well as a HNC. So I got here a little bit different, but it's been fantastic.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's such a good kind of view, another completely different way in. I guess 2 questions then for you. What made you think then, so what was your decision from doing the kind of electrical side of things to moving into the site manager side of things? What made you want to do that?
I think what I really wanted to do was be working on site, and electrics has always interested me. So when there was the option available that I might be able to come and work as a site manager, that really appealed to me because it just offers a lot more, different things. I mean, I do still get the chance to go and do my electrics because I get to snag all the electrics and I get to be with the electricians on site. But what St Modwen's offered, and the backup and the support that you get from St Modwen's was very, very appealing than just going out on my own and finding an electrical apprenticeship. So it did make me kind of rethink things and go for the option with St Modwen's.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes complete sense. And I guess one thing as well, for my benefit and also some of the students on the line then, so you mentioned a couple of qualifications you're doing on the side. So as part of that, so the MVQ and the HNC, do you mind just really quickly, not in too much detail, but just what are they and what is a MVQ and a HNC?
So my MVQ is the apprenticeship. It's just the technical term for the apprenticeship. So we get to do that on site. We go 1 day a week to college, and then we're working on site. And then the HNC is a different qualification. It's more of a theory-based qualification, but we're doing the two alongside each other. And that is in construction site management as well. So like I said, that's a bit more of a theory-based one, but it does give us the option to have 2 qualifications that are slightly different, but it means that we can work on site as well, so that when you are studying your HNC, which is a lot more theory-based, you've actually seen it in real life terms, and it's very, very helpful. And like I say, St Modwen's have given us the opportunity to get the 2. So, you know, that's been fantastic rather than just doing the 1. So yeah, that's been really helpful. And the MVQ does coincide with the HNC, so it's not as difficult as it sounds.
Yeah, I was going to say, you sound like you're going to have a very busy time. But no, that's great. Thank you. I've got a few more questions with both of you already, but I want to move on then to Terence. Is it okay if you give us an introduction and a little bit about your journey? And
Yes, of course. My name's Terence, and I finished my A-levels in about 2015. I was originally going to go do economics in university, but I decided last minute to join my dad in demolition instead. And kind of from there and that experience while being on site, I got interested in quantity surveying. So I applied for a quantity surveying course in Birmingham City University. I did that course for 3 years and also studied a bit in America with an exchange program. And I graduated last year, and I've been with St. Modwen since September of last year, and I applied here for April.
amazing. So you finished your kind of full-time, was it? So then it was a full-time degree, I guess, in that role, and then you moved into a more kind of graduate role.
Yes, it was a full-time quantity surveying course, and then I just went straight to work.
Oh, great. Okay, that's brilliant. So a third completely different kind of journey in, so that's really interesting. And one question then before I move on is, so you went and did it abroad. Did it feel different? Is there something about doing it for St Modwen's here, or how did you feel like that transition was of doing it in 2 different countries and places?
When you do it abroad, you definitely get a different perspective on things and kind of like a different work environment and work culture. And I feel like it's very good to adapt some of those disciplines in a way and apply it into the UK side, because it's just completely different outlooks, and it's definitely, I'd say, a lot more efficient the way to do it over in America. So I was able to adopt those over here, and especially like to apply it to my training program as well.
That's great. Yeah, no, it gives you a completely different perspective as well. So that's great. Thank you for that introduction. And then not least, but finally, Tom, is it right if you give us an intro into what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm 18 years old, similar to Kirsty. I did a joinery course at Burton College, and they offered me a trainee site management role. And I started in September, the same time as Kirsty, and I'm doing an MVQ and a HNC course on top of that as well. I think, to be fair, St Modwen, they have that logo saying unlock potential, and I can see that now, definitely an impact on me. And
it looks like you're actually kind of in action today as well.
Yeah,
is that the case?
Yeah, I've been back for about 3 weeks now. And they have that saying, if nothing's so important that's cannot be done safely. I think the way we've handled it, it's been fantastic with the social distancing on site. That's
really good to hear, and nice to get that insight as well, because sometimes we don't have an idea and kind of how that's working, and looking and seeing that you're all you're there and it's actually happening and you're getting back on site is really exciting. Great. So that gives me a good idea, and everyone on the line, of kind of who you are and how you got to where you are. And Kirsty, I was you touched on something earlier which I kind of wanted to ask as a separate question to everyone. But I'm going to start with you just because you mentioned it. So you were at that age and you didn't really know what you wanted to do at school, and something else circumstantially made you think differently. But I guess what advice would you give your younger self who might not have known, you know, that this route was right for you? It is a bit difficult when you're 16 to 18 and you're not exactly sure what the next step might be for you. Do you have any bits of advice for someone that's in that position?
Yeah, sure. Even from a young age, I mean, I was never very good at school. I didn't particularly enjoy school. And I've always wanted to get into the building trade, but me being a female and I'm very, very small. I'm literally 4'11". So what I would go back and tell myself, and I would tell any other students, is believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, you know, you won't follow your dreams, and then you'll end up doing what I ended up doing at a later age and saying, actually, I am gonna go back and do it. So rather than waste the time doing other things that you don't really want to do, take the plunge and believe in yourself. And you know what? If you do it and you don't like it, or it's not what you thought, it's not the end of the world. We can always go back, we can do other things. But if there's something that you're really thinking, there's something that I really want to do, or even something, if you don't even know what you want to do, but you've got a passion for something, even if it's just something that you do in your spare time, if you can turn that into something that you can work with or make money out of, you know, life's about being happy. And I think you've just got to follow your dreams, take the plunge. If you don't think you can do it, really ask yourself, do I want to do it? And if I do it, believe in yourself, and really go as far as you can with that. And if you don't know what you want to do, just spend a bit of time with yourself and see what sort of things you enjoy, because you can turn anything into a career.
Yeah, definitely. That's really motivational. You got such a good way of putting it. And I guess taking the plunge and maybe things not necessarily, finding out things might not necessarily be as you wanted. Jenna, I guess you went down that route. You took a plunge and then you decided that another direction was right for you. I guess as an example of that, do you have any advice as well to people that are a bit nervous about going down one route, or they're not really sure on the next steps? Is there anything you'd add to that from your experience?
To be fair, I'd just completely reiterate what Kirsty said. Like, unless you actually go and do it, you won't know whether you want to do it or not. You'll always be doing the whole, oh well, what if I did do it? I'm not gonna lie, it's been really hard work, and I mean, Alison will tell you how stressed I've been doing my assignments and stuff for university, but you know, I'm over halfway now, and you know, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and when I come out of this, I'll have a degree in quantity surveying, which I'm going to be really proud of. And you know, my son, he's in year 9, and it just sets such a good example for him that, you know, okay, mum didn't kind of follow the path that she initially wanted, but she's doing this one, and she's doing pretty well at it. And you know, if he goes to university and does something and he's not thrilled with it, he's got the opportunity where he can completely change his idea.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a good example then of having to balance multiple things and making that work, which is so impressive. So that's a great example. And Tom, I guess maybe then it's a bit closer to you in terms of that transition from college or from previously into the world of work. How have you found that? So going from maybe that environment to working and studying at the same time as well.
Very, I think at first it was daunting, but it's just having a bit of a level head and just trying to stay calm. Always putting that pressure on yourself and just understanding that you will learn. I always used to think that having that doubt in yourself, you won't achieve as much as you can.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it's that common theme of, you know, take the confidence, decide that, yeah, give it a go, is really good advice across the board and committing to it. Terence, so I know that we've got quite a few students on the line who know that they want to go into quantity surveying, and they've been asking a lot about how can I stand out, how can I prepare myself to kind of apply and do and be the right person, be the right candidate for particular roles they're applying for. You've obviously, you're a success story, and you've obviously been a successful candidate. What advice would you give to maybe someone who's about to embark on kind of applying and knowing that you're doing the role that one of our students might be interested in doing?
Honestly, I would say just try and get as much work experience as you possibly can, because one, not only will it teach you what the job kind of entails firsthand, but it also gives you that confidence and like idea of if this is exactly a role you want to go into. And also just generally, for terms of skills, just really have that kind of critical thinking. Because as a quantity surveyor, you really have to question everything that gets brought up to you. Like, for example, well, why do they want, let's say, I don't know, £1,000 for this when they've only done like 10 meters or something when they should be doing about 50? You know, you really got to be very critical, question everything, and also just, you know, don't have any self-doubt as well. You know, you always want to be on top.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a great advice, definitely in terms of like experience. And I guess we can touch on a little bit later what might be feasible in terms of experience and advice on that front. Alison, I guess from sitting on the other side of hiring, rather than maybe where our apprentices and trainees can talk about the experience of being successful, do you know if there's anything particular which St Modwen look for, or when you're sitting on the other side of the interview table, as advice for maybe some of the students that are on the line?
I think personally myself with St Modwen, we're very much about our values and having the right, you know, we as I think it was Tom mentioned earlier, or it was Jenna, I'm not sure, that we unlock the potential of our staff, and we build quality outcomes, we do the right thing, we're joined up, but we do what we say, and it's about living and breathing that in yourself as a person, you know, having that work ethic and that development. I know for a fact that all of the trainees and apprentices on the line today have been doing so much good work while they had to take a break from work during this pandemic and potentially have to go on furlough. Each and every one of them went and did something that's absolutely amazing. And, you know, I'm sure I could say some different things, but I know there's one person here who actually went and delivered food parcels to a member, you know, in their community who was having to self-isolate. So I think it's amazing when I came back to work speaking to everybody and what actually all the trainees and apprentices and graduates have been doing and actually thinking about other people. And I think that's something that needs to come across. Yes, things may have changed with what qualifications or what you were expecting in terms of grades, but while this has happened, what have you done? You know, we've had other trainees and graduates who have gone and cleared gardens for people and built greenhouses and so on and so forth, and to give them something to do, but also to put back to that community. So a bit of advice that I would give to anybody that when they do start looking for jobs and so on and so forth is definitely to think about what have you been doing, you know, what other skills can you show that you have developed in a time where you weren't able to go to college, you weren't able to go to school, you weren't able to go and get that work experience.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. And there's some, just the evidence of the panelists today, I guess, is reflection of how enthusiastic and committed. And those are two things which seem to come across all of the panelists today. So that seems to be a theme. Catherine, I know that you were going to be supporting in terms of like some other questions coming in, or maybe some questions yourself. I don't know, rather than me hogging all of the questions, if you had a couple from our side.
Yeah, sure. No, of course. Yeah, I can see a few questions have come in, which is great. I just had a few questions first. Kirsty, you mentioned, you know, you've got some theory as part of your course. I wondered how you cope then with doing the theory in between the practical work, and, you know, do you get study leave? How does that work?
So St Modwens are extremely supportive in that way. So we do go to college 1 day a week. And then St Modwens give us a permitted amount of hours per week where we can use the office to sit down, get through with some work, make sure that we're keeping on top of everything. We have regular quarterly meetings with our line managers as well to make sure that we are supported and that we're getting on with everything okay, that we're not feeling overwhelmed with anything. And I think one of the things with St Modwens is, obviously, because I've worked in other companies, what I find amazing is the management are so close to us. Like, I could literally ring some of the top managers, they're in my work phone, and they have, all of them, got the time of the day to speak to me if I'm struggling with anything, or if I say, you know, I really need a couple of hours this week because I've just got a little bit of things that are too much on top of me. They will give you that time, and they will give you all of the training and the help and the resources that you need. So, and again, the managers on site are all really, really good as well, and they do help you. So obviously, because we're on an apprenticeship, it's important that we are working as well, but that work is part of our theory work as well. So I will say that it has been okay, because St Modwens are very, very supportive with that, and they do give us that time to keep up with things so that we don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's great, because I think that's a worry of sometimes, you know, the students are like, how will I fit it in? How will I cope with that? And then I guess obviously now adapting to the certain situation, I guess everything will be virtually, and, you know, do you have like regular meetups then, or Zoom calls perhaps with your line manager, I guess? And as you said, you know, easy access in terms of, it's great that you feel that confident enough to call them and just give them a call. So it's a real nice sort of sense of community, I guess, which is great.
Yeah.
And Tom, I just want to come to you, because obviously it's great that you're on site, but I wondered how that works with your role. You know, are you always on site? Are you in it out and about at other sites? How does that work? Do you always stay in the one site?
As a trainee, when we first met our managing director, the first thing he said was to spend at least about 90% of your day on site. That's where you learn, on site, not in the office, stuck in there. It's always about being on site, learning how the build is. What was the other question? Sorry.
Yeah, so I guess, is it just one site that you're at? Did you have a say in that, or do you spend
what we do is
time
to keep us sort of fresh and get different ways of learning off different managers. We rotate every sort of, I think it's 5-6 months, isn't it, Kirsty? Where we rotate every 5-6 months, learning off different managers. It's just to keep us fresh and learning different ways of building the house.
Great, yeah, and as you say, learn from different people, and to help build up your network as well, with meeting people, different people in the team. Great. I think I'm conscious of time, and I can see more questions have come in, which is great. So let's go to some of them. So someone has asked, what made you, this is probably for you, Kirsty, what made you train as an electrician?
I've always been a bit of a tomboy, and I've always liked more of a practical side of things. And I think it's a really, really amazing feeling when you can walk into a house and everyone's moaning because they've got no lights on. And then you can you can do your first fix, and then by the end of a couple of months later, you've done your second fix, and you turn a switch and your lights go on, and you did that. That's something that I've always found really rewarding. And I've just liked the practical side of things. But I think it's the same with any trade, where whether you're an electrician or a joiner or anything, you start with a blank piece of wood and you make it what that finished product is. And that is the best feeling in the world. So it was hard, but that was what drew me into that, because sometimes there's no better feeling than being on a site at 7 o'clock in the morning and the sun's coming up and your radio's on and you're working hard, and by the end of the day you've got a finished product, and that is a really, really good feeling.
That's great, and great answer. And I can see how, you know, even in how you deliver that answer, I can see your passion for it. So that's great.
Yeah. It was all very exciting. It really was. So yeah, it's good.
That's brilliant. I'm just going to move on to one of the other questions then. So from Mia. Mia, I'm going to ask this question to Jenna. So did you have any work experience in the construction field before you made that transition?
Absolutely none whatsoever. I mean, obviously when I was living at home, I'd hear my dad talking, doing work calls, and I'd see drawings all over the place while he was pricing, because he's a quantity surveyor for a ground worker. Well, it's his company, so he's a ground worker, so he's the one that puts the pipes in the ground, and he does all the foundations, like, you know, the building blocks for what your house stands on. So I didn't really have a clue. And then when I decided I was going to do this, he kind of gave me a crash course in what drawings meant and bits and pieces, but apart from that I had absolutely none whatsoever. So it was like a fresh, clean slate for me.
And that's really good to know. And I guess I just want to extend it to Allison. So, you know, from a hiring perspective, obviously there's an example of like having the passion and energy for it. Is work experience a requirement or a nice to have, I guess?
For us at St Modwen, work experience is vital. It's something that we encourage across the business through our partnerships. And I think for anybody, it helps them realise where they want to go, or maybe where they don't want to go as well. I think it's an area that obviously I can still remember my own work experience, and I'm definitely not in a vet's, so, you know, but I tried it and it was something different. So I think it helps you to understand what working life is about and where you want to go. So I would definitely recommend work experience for anybody. If they can't get work experience with the same company that they want to work with, try and get it within the same industry. Construction is huge in terms of an industry, and there's lots of different roles that you can go and work in. And as Jenna's just pointed out, Jenna works in quantity surveying of residential houses, whereas her family members are actually with the quantity surveying pipe works and the groundworks. So there's lots of different areas that you can go into. So get that work experience, and you might not think it directly relates, but in some way it may relate.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And anyone who has any questions about work experience, remember we're around to kind of help support on that.
Yeah, and I guess following on from that, Jake has asked, do you offer work experience? So I guess, Alison, one for you. Is there anything available for students at the moment?
Yeah, so something that we've discussed is what we want to do for those of you that have participated and have committed to joining this webinar today. What we want to do is work with Ellie and Catherine to maybe look at a way that we can put you in touch with somebody within a team. So although we won't be able to physically put you on site with somebody for work experience, it might be that actually we can do some sort of online mentoring with you and actually get you that support. So whether that's with somebody that's actually currently a trainee, apprentice or graduate with, say, Modwen, or whether we look further afield. But please remember that there are lots of roles within construction. And there is more than just quantity surveying, more than just site management. You've got health and safety, there's marketing, you know, there's our technical team, pre-construction. So there's lots of areas for you to look at. And I would definitely advise using this time to find out as much and get that information from as many people as possible.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Alison. And I hope that's a nice surprise for you guys, you know, getting that valuable experience with people within the team.
Yeah, and I think that ties in really nicely to Tracy Hill's given us, just asked a question around, in the current situation, while work experience opportunities aren't on offer because of COVID, the social distancing, what alternatives would you suggest? And Alison, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there, and what we're trying to do here collaboratively is that mentorship piece. But I don't know if there's anything else that, beyond the research and what we just discussed, but don't worry if not.
There is some stuff that I'm working on. It's a bit of a work in progress at the moment. But one thing I will always say about construction is one of the most innovative industries you will ever work with. And we are always trying to be probably 50 years ahead of what's going on. So yeah, I'm sure there will be, where there's a will, there's a way. And we've definitely got the will.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that's exactly what the students want to hear.
We've got a question. How does it work being assigned to a site? Is it based on where you live? So I guess, Tom, how did that work then in terms of you being assigned to your first site perhaps? And then maybe Alison can help with answering the second part in terms of whether it's done on where you live or how that process works.
Sort of is, but I think it's also character as well. I think if you're someone that's willing to sort of get involved, you put on a site that will need someone that's very resilient and very upbeat. But I think if you're someone that needs that time to adapt, then they'll put you on a site that's already set. They've got people there that have covered a lot of things, and they're just supervising over you. I think that's how it's gone. I don't think it's down to sort of the area you live in. It's more your character. Okay,
great. And Alison, anything to add?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to say is, as I said, one of our values is we do the right thing. It's all about the people and making sure that we're doing the right thing for that person. I'll give you an example. We've got one of our apprentices rides his bike to site, so we're not going to send him anywhere that isn't justifiably able to get. And I know that, you know, if I told Kirsty she couldn't possibly go onto the Goodyear site because it was far too far away from her house, she'd probably moan at me quite a lot. So it's about doing we do the right thing for our trainees and apprentices to make sure that they get that breadth of experience. But equally, it's got to be about that work-life balance as well, and making sure that, more importantly, that their training and their development isn't impacted because of the length of time getting to site.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've got another question in there, which I'm going to ask to Terence. So, hi there, guys. What's the difference between a graduate and a trainee scheme?
I'd say with my graduate scheme, it's pretty much similar to a trainee scheme, but since I've already got those 3 years of my degree, it's a bit more quicker. So I'll assume with like TARM, or, you know, it might be a bit more longer, and it might have a bit more in-depth kind of training while on site. While with me, it's kind of like stuff I already did in uni. So I'm just quite like quickly applying it in, and they don't expect me to be on it for too long compared to a regular trainee scheme.
Okay, great. That gives us a really good idea. And then I wonder from that, then maybe just something to touch on before we move on, is that in terms of what's on offer from different levels of apprenticeships and trainee schemes and graduate schemes, I know there's complexity in that, but Alison, is it right if you give us an idea in terms of what different levels of things are on offer at St Modwen?
Yeah, sure, no problem at all. So we with our apprentices and our trainees, so for instance, Jenna, yours was 5-year degree, is that right?
Yeah, 5 years part-time.
Yeah, 5 years part-time. But depending on what level of qualification that you come in with, it might be that actually you'll just do 2 years with our actual training scheme as well. So Jenna's is actually a longer, because it's that 5 years part-time, it's getting her qualified, and also gets her a chartership as well, which I think is a really key point. And then with our site managers, Kirsty, yours is currently 2 years that you're on this particular program. Yeah.
We like skip a level as well, so because we all came in on a good level, because we'd done the electrics and things and joinery, so we're on like a level 4.
Yeah, so Kirsty and Tom are both on the level 4 qualification, which is a 2-year program, and then after that program they could go on for a further 2 years at university and then get the full top-up degree as well. And obviously I'm not going to force them into that at the moment, because they're only just getting to the end of year 1. And that's that side of it as well. So that's within obviously our construction and with our commercial, but then obviously we've got team as well as health and safety as well. But one thing that we are very much proud of is it's about being that flexibility, but encouraging all of our staff to get that training and development and access, really, that, you know, we can develop ourselves all the time.
That's amazing, thank you. Yeah, it gives us a really good idea in terms of what's on offer, so thanks. In terms of kind of, unfortunately, I don't know how this session has gone so quickly, but we've actually hit 45 minutes already. So what I just want to ask of the students is, well, any last questions, do get them in now, but conscious of time and letting you know what the next steps are, really. I've absolutely loved today's session. I always leave them wanting to do it myself. So thank you so much for all of your time, all of the panelists today. It's been really interesting hearing about all the different routes and your stories and advice. And I know that will extend to the students, definitely. Thank you to the students for joining us. Again, like I mentioned earlier, and any questions you might have, then do let us know. As a follow-up to today, then we will send round, you know, a recording of this session, as we always do, and to those students who might not have been able to make it. But also, I know we've touched upon today that kind of opportunity for those of you who are on the line, and we will firm that up with the St Modwen team and just make sure that we can offer to you that opportunity as and where you might want that as a student who's joined us today. And that follow-up will come to you tomorrow, the latest. But if you do have any questions between now and then you know you can always email us at student@pathwayctm.com. Just pop your name in, pop the fact you were on this session today, and we'll get back to you and help support you there. We do have these sessions often, and so anyone who wants to follow us on Instagram at PathwayCTM, then we'll keep you updated in terms of what's going on, how we can help support you. So I guess in terms of today, unfortunately the time's flown by, so thank you so much to all of our guests, and we really appreciate you joining us and the students as well, and have a lovely rest of the day, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.